James Murray. I'm in the NetNewsLedger news studio this evening with Chief Isadore Day. Welcome back to the studio, Chief.
Yeah, thanks, James.
You have been out all over Ontario over the last couple of weeks since we last spoke.
Covered a lot of miles.
What are you hearing out on the trails?
Well, what I'm hearing, I'm hearing some things that are expected. Obviously the chiefs and the First Nation citizens that I am meeting with, they generally want to be heard. That's a given. We know that. But there's something else here. There's a couple different themes that are happening. You see, the approach I've taken, James, is that I go to a community and sit down with the chief, and basically it's a land issue, right? Basically, where's the community situated? What are the treaty issues? What are the issues as seen by the chief and the citizens that I'm able to speak with? And what do they want the regional chief to do? And there are some very obvious things. People want to be heard. They definitely need a national voice. Ontario has been in the last several years been virtually non-existent on the national scene. What I am hearing a lot of is the young people are very concerned about their future.
Yes.
And they definitely want to participate in forging the path forward, flattening the grass on their future, and having decisions around what happens on the land. And then you have your obvious issues like the social issues, the economic issues, but there's some common themes that I'm hearing out there.
When you're talking about the youth, I mean, everyone always, you hear the story, the youth are the future, we got to listen to the youth. What do you do to engage youth?
Well, there's so many avenues now, and it's amazing to watch the youth, how they mobilize themselves in real time on the ground. There seems to be a growing camaraderie among the youth, and certainly we see that they're also very instinctive about how they relate to the elders in the community. It's quite clear that the youth are quite determined. They're focused on the important issues of the land, but they're also quite savvy in terms of networks and using technology. So what I'm seeing is that the youth are going to come out much stronger now, and they're going to be very, very pointed about using technology and having online meetings and using technology, social media, it's obvious, as a way to mobilize and as a way to get everybody on the same page on an issue of concern.
Well, the youth are taking a route that way, and in a lot of society, we're also finding the seniors or the elders are also online,
right,
as well, and they're connecting like never before.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for me to get a friend request from an elder in a community, or actually just be perusing and chatting online with somebody and seeing that they have elders online.
Yeah.
And this is a really, really good thing, because I think we're now seeing the best of both worlds, if you will. We're seeing the future, and we're also seeing that wisdom and the knowledge from the elders being shared in meaningful and in ways that isn't, how would you say it, unethical, if you will. Like there's certain things that elders will never share online, and things that must be kept sacred. And in that sense, the elders are quite savvy in their own right with social media.
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
The issue with land, the land comes to treaty.
Yeah.
Treaty trumps policy. Treaty trumps really government, because
Right.
it's a government-to-government contract or agreement.
Exactly.
And that's becoming far more common now. What are you hearing on that, on your journeys?
Well, on the issue of treaty, it's quite clear. I just attended a meeting in Lac Seul out at Frenchman's Head today, and they were talking about food security, food distribution for the region, getting into the remote communities. But this is a project that's been undertaken by the Community Economic Development Initiative. And the theme of this initiative is we're all treaty people. and it's really interesting to watch how the collective consciousness of First Nations is really gravitating towards a very simple agenda on the issue of treaty. And you know, it's no longer just about sharing in the benefit. It's no longer about the rights and asserting the rights, but it's also about sharing in the decisions as to how things should be on the land. It's about sharing in decisions about how land use planning takes place. We know that in the north, with the Far North Act and the encroachment and the mass push towards development, that you know, many of our northern communities are saying, listen, the treaties just were not about exploitation of land, and you know, we need to sit down and come to terms with the issue of treaty, and we need to be clear on what that meant, the spirit and intent, and what it means going forward.
Yes. I know in Alberta there's Treaty 7 there, which talks about, you know, basically the Queen will keep a medicine chest,
Right.
on the First Nation, and today there's argument whether that's advanced life support or a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe back in the day it would have been a medicine bag.
Right.
But as the treaties are an evolving thing, they're not just stuck
Right.
in the language. They have to be able to work it into today's world.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's really a seesaw debate, if you will, around whether or not the issue of treaty belongs before the courts. I'm of the opinion that they are, and they shouldn't be, you know, and that, you know, they're there, but it's quite clear that governments should be relying on the spirit and intent of those treaties, and it's unfortunate that, you know, we live in a political system. The successor state governments are a party system, and there's a competing political agenda constantly, and treaties aren't interpreted fairly, if you will. It all becomes a political pawn and kind of a cat and mouse game. But when it really boils down to it, those treaties were very explicit. You know, they talked about sharing. They talked about, you know, having something for the next generation. They evidenced our sovereignty just by the virtue that we entered into those treaties. So we know that there are the level of interpretation, but there's things that are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Just one thing I will mention about the treaties and how it's being explained to the Crown governments now, i.e. the Ministry of Natural Resources, is that, you know, when the settlers first came here, they parked their boat on the shore. They came in, the indigenous people, the first people, the Anishinaabe people, the Ongwe people, they accepted the settler into this land, and the treaty blanket was laid down. The treaties were made on that blanket, and here's how things shaped out. The settlers came from another land. They didn't have sovereignty on this land. Our people had sovereignty, and that was what gave us the ability to make that treaty. So it was a nation-to-nation relationship, but when the two parties left that treaty blanket, they both left with treaty rights. However, the settler society, they became defined by those treaty rights. The treaty didn't define our rights. We had inherent rights, so we left that blanket with treaty rights plus.
Yeah.
The settler society left with treaty rights. And today, it's very, very clear that, you know, the outcomes and the years after effect of that relationship is not fair, and we're now having to correct that. So it's a big deal.
The scale is probably going to have to swing to the other side to make it equal when it finally comes back into the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other area that has been discussed a lot in the news lately and a lot everywhere has been education. What are you hearing as you travel through the regions from chiefs and from people in the communities about what they want to see with education?
Well, you know, that's an issue that is very clear. In the Ontario region, in the last couple of years, the chiefs right across the region spoke very loudly about education and wanting to have our own process. And you know, let's be clear. The central point for government is the money,
Yeah.
the money and the control. the central issue for First Nations is our control and autonomy, and ensuring that the education that our children get in the schools is culturally appropriate, that it's actually going to start restoring some of the languages, and that when kids go through the system, that their sense of identity is so strong that they have no angst or no stress about their curriculum, that they're very sure about what they're doing. The system, the way that it is now, and the Band-Aid solution that the Conservative government wants to apply to this, it certainly is not going to provide results. So, instinctively, our leadership over the last couple of years has a collective consciousness about education, and that seems to resonate throughout our communities. So we're quite clear on the education agenda.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience that you're finding?
Well, I definitely know that there's a great number of issues in the First Nation communities, and so far with the number of chiefs that I've been able to speak with, I get the sense that there is a growing capacity and ability to deal with certain issues at the community level. But what's really required is strategic coordination. The Chiefs of Ontario, as you may know, is a smaller administration. There's been funding cuts, there has been pressures, there's been divisions, there's the issue of the Chiefs of Ontario main offices in Toronto and Thunder Bay. We've got Treaty 3 in the far north issues, and what the Chiefs of Ontario needs now is a plan. They need proposed action, and they need strategic coordination and being able to communicate that and engage people. So it's really just how are we managing the growing number of issues, and I think with the folks that I've surrounded myself with, and those that are coming along and giving me advice, including to a greater extent the chiefs, it's quite clear we can do this. And with the youth behind us, we certainly have the strength, the vision, and the momentum to really make change in our communities and become relevant in this country.
Chief Day, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Big Witch.